Well, after hedging her bets for many months now, the Chancellor appears to finally have admitted that she's going to have to increase taxes in the upcoming budget, despite, of course, promising a rise last year wouldn't happen again.
Rachel Reeves says she's looking at further measures on tax and spending ahead of her November review as she tackles rising debt and weak growth. So we're joined now by Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock. Is this what so many said was going to happen, and I guess what everybody feared was going to happen, that actually taxes are going up despite the promises and there will be cuts in spending?
Well, you'll forgive me, I'm not going to speculate on the content of the budget. That's a matter for the Chancellor and on the 26th of November. Of course it is, and I don't want to interrupt
you, but could you speculate on what you read, as we all are, into what she said abroad, which is she's now considering it? It's part of the picture.
Well, what I do know is that we are facing a very challenging fiscal position after 14 years of Conservative neglect and incompetence and economic stagnation. We're currently paying, just in debt interest alone, over £100 billion a year. That's money that's just going to overseas investors, American hedge funds on the financial markets. That's more than the entire education budget in our country. So we've got to deal with the fact that we've got a serious position on fiscally and in terms of
you
debt.
Knew all that before.
What I am also,
you knew
what
all
we
that
can also
the
talk
election.
about is the fact that we had the highest level of growth in the G7 in the first 6 months of this year. We've had 5 interest rates cuts. We're having wages going up more in the first 10 months of this Labour government than we did in 10 years of the Conservatives. So we are beginning to get into the foothills of economic recovery, but there's still a very long way to go.
All right, to take you back to the first half of your answer there, you knew all of that. You knew what the fiscal issues were before the election, and yet you still made manifesto promises not to raise taxes, which you've broken and looks like you're going to break again. You promised too much, didn't you, to get elected?
Well, we promised that we wouldn't put up VAT or income tax or national insurance on employees, and we have absolutely stuck to those pledges. We inherited a situation where the tax burden on working people was the highest it had been in generations, and where living standards had fallen over the course of the Parliament for the first time since the Napoleonic era. So, we are dealing with an extremely challenging fiscal and economic position.
So you stuck to that then?
But
are you going to stick to it now, is the question? Are you party to discussions? Are you asking people? Because that's the worry, isn't it? That you stuck to it in the first instance and promised it wouldn't happen again. Now we know it's being considered.
Well, tax policy is a matter for the Chancellor, and that will all be clarified on the 26th of November in the budget. What I am clear on is the decisions she took in the last budget generated £29 billion of investment in our NHS, and as a result of that, we're seeing waiting lists falling. We're getting 2,000 GPs onto the front line. We have the biggest increase in the budget for pharmacy in many, many years. We're beginning to see that shift in our public services. We also saw the Chancellor changing some of the rules around borrowing so that she could do more, and we as an economy could do more borrowing to invest. We're reforming the planning laws, which will significantly help in terms of dealing with the housing crisis in our country, but that will also inject growth and investment into our economy. So there are a whole suite of reform measures and investment that we're bringing forward to get the British economy back on its feet and firing on all cylinders once again. But this is not something that can be done overnight.
All right, Mr Kinnock, we know that you're here to talk about mental health support for the jobless, and I promise you we'll come to that in just a second. But just the other big rolling story of the moment is the collapse of the Chinese spy trial. Just putting it to you bluntly, do we have an unwritten agreement with Beijing that they can spy on us in return for maintaining trade relationships with them? Because our trade relationship with China is crucial.
No. And let me emphasise that the government is really disappointed that this prosecution, this case wasn't able to continue in the judgment of the Crown Prosecution Service. The offences, the alleged offences, took place between 21 and 23, when the legal basis was an antiquated piece of legislation, the Official Secrets Act of 1911. The Conservatives said that they needed to review that and bring in more updated legislation. But from 2015 to 2023, they didn't do that. I don't know what they may have been doing. Perhaps they were too busy botching Brexit or dealing with Partygate or crashing the economy with Liz Truss's mini-budget. Looks like they were too distracted to actually deal with issues relating to our national security.
So now that you're in power and you have
offences the legislation applies to when the alleged offences took place. That was between 21 and 23, when that was the Conservative government and not this one that was in power.
So if a similar issue was presented to you now, with you know, you're in control of the legislation and the definitions, would you be confident you'd go all out as a government? Because GDP figures show productivity is down. They're out this morning. China is crucial to our trade, as Richard said. So there's not going to be a case that you would feel pressure to turn a bit of a blind eye?
Absolutely not. There is nothing more important than our national security. The defence of our values and our national interest is paramount. Fortunately, the Conservatives did finally pull their finger out and get their act together, and we got the National Security Act of 2023, where the bar is much lower. You just have to be caught spying for a foreign power. And so clearly that gives a much more a modernised and updated base for prosecuting, and that is absolutely what we would do.
Do you think China's a threat to the UK?
I think our relationship with China is complex and multifaceted. Let's take, for example, climate change. It's absolutely clear that we can't tackle global warming without constructive engagement with China. On tech, we are ready to compete with China, but on issues of national security and our values, we must be ready to confront. We take a clear-eyed and robust approach to defending our national interest and our national security. And it doesn't matter which country in the world we're dealing with, that will always be a consistent principle that this government will always apply.
Now, you've got a big bag filled with £80 million to give health support, mental health support to people who are unemployed. Can you explain how that's going to work?
Sorry, I think there may have been some crossed wires. The announcement today is on £80 million for children's hospices. We're really proud that we're moving away from the cliff edge of the annual funding cycles onto a 3-year funding settlement. I visited a wonderful children's hospice yesterday, Noah's Ark, in Barnet, and talking there with the chief executive, she was saying how great it is that they've now got the stability and certainty to be able to plan for 3 years, to pay their staff for 3 years, the bedrock of stability that the government funding gets, which is, of course, mixed with then all of the amazing charity fundraising and philanthropy that supports them. So they do amazing work. It's the definition of care and compassion, supporting children who have got life-limiting conditions, with everything from physiotherapy to occupational therapy to bereavement counselling for families. We are absolutely committed as a government to supporting children's hospices, and that's why I'm so proud to be able to say that we've made this £80 million allocation for a 3-year period.
Well, there'll be many, many people that will be so thrilled to hear you've done that, because we know the extraordinary work they do and how vital they are for so many people. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us this morning. Thank you.
Stephen Kinnock, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.